Greetings, my brilliant students, students of English, of ideas, and of quiet ambition. Today, I want to tell you a story. Not just about a company, but about a quiet rebellion. A rebellion that started not with noise or anger, but with frustration. A rebellion that began because of a small mistake, a small fine, and a big dream. This is the story of how two ordinary men changed the way the entire world watches movies. No fame, no power, no billion-dollar investors. Just two men, one $40 late fee, and a question that no one else was asking. Why is watching a movie still so hard? At that time, in the late 1990s, there was one king in the world of movies, Blockbuster. If you wanted to watch a movie, you went to their store. You walked through long aisles, looked at hundreds of DVD and VHS boxes, and chose what you wanted. Then you paid a small fee to rent it for a few days. If you returned it late, you paid extra. That was the rule. And Blockbuster made millions of dollars from those late fees. For years, no one questioned it. People just accepted it. But then, one man did not. Part 1: The $40 Mistake. In 1997, a man named Reed Hastings went to Blockbuster to return a movie he had rented. The movie was called Apollo 13, but he was late and Blockbuster charged him $40 in late fees. Now, Reed wasn't poor. He was a software engineer, well-educated, and successful. But that late fee made him really angry. He thought, why am I paying $40 for returning a movie late? This is not fair. I didn't forget it on purpose. I was just busy like most people. That one small moment planted a seed in his mind, a seed of frustration, curiosity, and creativity. He started asking himself questions. What if there was a better way to rent movies? What if people could watch what they wanted, when they wanted, without late fees, without rules? And that question changed everything. At that time, Blockbuster was a giant. It had more than 9,000 stores around the world. Everyone knew their blue and yellow logo. Families visited every weekend to pick a movie together. They were the kings of home entertainment. They believed they could never lose. But in the background, Reed Hastings and his friend Mark Randolph were planning something new. Something small, strange, and different. They had an idea to rent and sell movies through the internet and send them by mail. It sounded crazy. No one believed it would work. People said, who would wait for a DVD in the mail when they can just go to the store? Even investors laughed at them. Many rejected their idea. Some said it was impossible. But Reed and Mark didn't stop. They kept going. They tested ideas, failed, and tried again. At first, they even went to Blockbuster and offered to sell their small company to them. They asked for $50 million. Blockbuster's leaders laughed in their faces. They said, "This internet thing will never replace our stores." That moment was painful, but it also gave them power. They decided to keep going quietly, patiently, and with obsession. Years later, everything changed. The internet grew faster. DVDs became cheaper. And people started to hate late fees. Slowly, Netflix, yes, that was the name they chose, started growing. Their model was simple. You could rent movies online and get them delivered to your home. No due dates. No late fees. Just freedom. And people loved it. Blockbuster, the giant, ignored them. They didn't see Netflix as a threat. But by the time they tried to fight back, it was too late. Netflix had already moved to something even bigger, streaming. Movies and shows you could watch instantly, anytime, anywhere, with just a click. That quiet little idea, born from one $40 fine, had become a revolution. Blockbuster went bankrupt. And Netflix became one of the most powerful entertainment companies in the world. But this story isn't just about business. It's about mindset. It's about how frustration can become fuel. It's about being laughed at, rejected, and doubted, and still continuing. It's about revenge without revenge, winning without shouting, and building quietly while no one believes in you. So, if someone ever tells you your dream is too small, too strange, or too late, remember this story. Remember that sometimes the world doesn't believe in you until you've already won. You don't need to be loud to make history. You just need to stay quietly obsessed. And as you listen to this story, remember, you're not just hearing English. You're learning it. You're improving your vocabulary, your understanding, and your confidence, all through a real story with real emotion. No boring grammar. No robotic lessons. Just life, language, and inspiration combined. Now, let's continue this journey, the full story of how Netflix destroyed Blockbuster and quietly changed the world forever. Part 2, The Birth of Netflix, from an idea to a revolution. People loved movies. Every weekend, they lined up at Blockbuster stores across America to rent VHS tapes and later DVDs. It was a family tradition. You'd walk into the store, browse the shelves, read the backs of the boxes, and pick something to watch. But behind the fun, the system was old, frustrating, and unfair. You had to go to the store physically, rent a DVD, and remember to bring it back on time. If you forgot, even by one day, you were punished with a late fee, sometimes even more expensive than the movie itself. People complained, but they accepted it. That's just how things were. But one man, Reed Hastings, didn't accept it. He asked a simple question. What if people didn't have to go to the store? What if people could choose movies from home? And what if there were no late fees at all? Now pause for a second, because this part is very important. Millions of people had the same frustration. They were annoyed, they complained to their friends, and then they moved on. But Reed did something different. He turned his frustration into fuel. Reed had a friend and business partner named Mark Randolph. Mark wasn't rich. He wasn't famous. He didn't come from a powerful family. He was just a dreamer, someone who loved ideas, creativity, and entrepreneurship. He enjoyed building things from nothing. One day, Reed walked into Mark's small office and said, "What if we create a service that lets people rent movies by mail?" Mark looked confused. "By mail?" he asked. "You mean people order a movie online and we send it to them through the post?" Reed nodded. "Exactly. They can rent it online, we mail it to them, and most importantly, no late fees. They can keep it as long as they want." That moment, in a small, quiet office with no investors, no team, and no clear plan, was the birth of Netflix. They didn't have a product yet. They didn't even have a working website. But they had something more powerful, a vision. A vision to make movie renting fair, easy, and modern. Before launching anything, they decided to do a simple test. They took a CD, not even a movie DVD, just a regular music CD, and put it inside a small envelope. They wrote an address on it, dropped it in a mailbox, and waited. Would it break? Would it arrive safely? Would it even work? A few days later, the CD arrived perfectly fine. That small moment changed everything. Reed and Mark looked at each other and realized, it's possible. We can do this. And so, in 1997, the first version of Netflix was born. They built a small website, very basic, very simple. It had a short list of movies that users could browse. You could go online, click on a movie, and get it delivered to your home by mail. There were no advertisements, no streaming, no famous movie studios helping them. Just two men, a tiny team, and a dream. They called it Netflix, a combination of two words, net from the internet and flicks, slang for movies. It was new. It was strange. It was different. And because it was new, most people didn't trust it. They said, "Why would I rent a movie from a website? I already have Blockbuster down the street." But Reed and Mark didn't stop. They kept improving. They knew something that Blockbuster didn't understand yet. The future of entertainment isn't about punishment, it's about freedom. In 1999, Netflix made a bold move. They introduced a monthly subscription plan. Instead of paying for each movie, customers could pay one small fee per month and rent as many movies as they wanted. They could keep the DVDs for as long as they liked and return them when they were ready. There were no late fees. It was completely new. Nobody in the video rental world had ever done this. And this one simple change solved a huge problem. People loved it. They felt free. They could finally enjoy movies without stress or punishment. Slowly, the world started to notice. But at this stage, Blockbuster was still laughing. They were making billions of dollars from late fees. To them, Netflix looked like a toy, a joke that would disappear soon. They didn't feel threatened at all. But while Blockbuster laughed, Netflix kept growing, not loudly, not quickly, but quietly. One customer at a time. People who tried it loved it. It was simple, fair, and friendly. Netflix cared about convenience, not control. And that quiet storm was slowly turning into a massive wave. By the year 2000, Netflix was growing steadily. They had a loyal base of customers who loved the subscription model. Every day, their small team was sending DVDs by mail across the country. People appreciated the freedom, the comfort, and the kindness of the system. No pressure. No penalties. Just movies. But behind the scenes, Netflix was in trouble. They were growing, yes, but they were also bleeding money. They had not yet found a way to be truly profitable. Every DVD they mailed cost money. Every envelope, every delivery added up. The dream was alive, but survival was getting harder. And what happened next would test everything they believed in. Part 3. The rejection that changed everything. By the year 2000, Netflix was growing, but not fast enough. On the outside, things looked exciting. More people were signing up. More DVDs were being mailed every day. But behind the scenes, there was a dark truth. Netflix was spending more money than it was earning. They had warehouses full of DVDs to manage. They had to pay for shipping, for employees, for servers, and for customer support. But the company wasn't profitable. Every month, they were losing millions of dollars. Reed Hastings believed they were building something special. He could see the future, a world where movies would be digital, on demand, and personal. But he also knew they were running out of time. The dream was growing, but the money was disappearing. And no investors wanted to help. So one day, Reed walked into Mark Randolph's office and said something bold. "Let's sell Netflix." Mark looked up, surprised. "Sell it? To who?" Reed took a deep breath. "To the giant. To Blockbuster." That one decision would change everything. The meeting with the giant. Reed and Mark scheduled a meeting with John Antioco, the CEO of Blockbuster, the most powerful name in the movie rental business. This was a huge deal. At that time, Blockbuster was worth billions of dollars. They had more than 9,000 stores in over 20 countries. They made money from every direction: movie rentals, snack sales, video game rentals, and especially from late fees. Netflix, on the other hand, was just a small startup. They had no profit, no big offices, and no power. But Reed had hope. He thought, if Blockbuster understands our vision, we can help each other. They dominate the stores. We dominate the internet. Together, we can own the future. So Reed and Mark flew to Dallas, where Blockbuster's headquarters were located. They walked into a luxurious office, tall glass windows, leather chairs, and a long boardroom table. They sat across from Blockbuster's executives, their hearts pounding. Reed began to speak passionately. He explained the idea. You dominate physical stores. We dominate online rentals. Let's partner, or you can buy Netflix and let us run your digital side. John Antioco leaned forward and asked calmly, for how much? Reed replied, $50 million. There was silence in the room. Then laughter. Real laughter. The executives at Blockbuster laughed in their faces. $50 million? For a DVD website that's losing money. To them, Netflix was nothing, a small internet toy that would never survive. Reed and Mark sat there, embarrassed, humiliated, but also angry. They left the meeting with red faces and a fire in their hearts. The turning point. As soon as they walked out of that building, Reed turned to Mark and said, all right then. Let's destroy them. They didn't post about it. They didn't complain. They didn't talk to the media. They did something far more powerful. They went back to work. Reed and Mark decided that if the world wouldn't believe in them, they would believe in themselves even harder. They improved the website. They made the algorithm smarter. They reduced the time it took for DVDs to reach customers. They hired better people. They studied what their users loved and gave them more of it. Slowly, month by month, Netflix began to rise. Quietly, patiently, relentlessly. Blockbuster didn't even notice. They were too busy celebrating their success, enjoying their billions, and opening more stores. But while they were sleeping, Netflix was building the future. The secret weapon, the algorithm. Here's a detail most people don't know. Netflix introduced something revolutionary, a movie recommendation algorithm. In simple words, the Netflix website began to learn what you liked. If you rented a romantic comedy, it would suggest more love stories. If you watched action films, it would show you more explosions and heroes. Netflix was using data to understand every user personally. It was no longer just a DVD rental company. It became a data-driven entertainment experience, a company that could predict your taste and help you find your next favorite movie. That one innovation changed everything. People started to feel like Netflix understood them. It wasn't just renting movies, it was building relationships. Customers stayed longer. They watched more. They recommended Netflix to their friends. And by 2003, Netflix had passed 1 million subscribers. People loved the convenience. No more driving to the store. No more waiting in lines. No more late fees. Movies came right to your door, simple, personal, and stress-free. Finally, Blockbuster began to notice the change. Their numbers were falling. Their revenue was shrinking. But they still didn't take Netflix seriously. To them, Netflix was a mosquito, annoying, but not dangerous. So what did Blockbuster do? They copied them. They launched Blockbuster Online, their own DVD by mail service. But it was too late. Netflix already had years of customer data, a loyal fan base, and a better system. And most importantly, Netflix had no ego. They were ready to change. Blockbuster wasn't. Blockbuster didn't want to kill their stores because their stores made billions in late fees. They didn't want to destroy their own business, even if it meant losing the future. And that's exactly what happened. Part 4, the boldest move that killed a giant. Netflix, on the other hand, had nothing to lose, only the future to build. By 2005, they had millions of happy users, a brilliant tech system, low prices, and complete control of the online rental world. Meanwhile, Blockbuster was collapsing slowly, piece by piece. They tried everything. They cut prices, they copied Netflix's DVD by mail idea, they even removed late fees, but far too late. The damage was done. People had already fallen in love with Netflix. Why? Because Netflix didn't punish them. Netflix didn't treat customers like criminals for forgetting to return a DVD. Instead, Netflix treated people with respect. Netflix made entertainment feel human, kind, and modern. And that was something Blockbuster could never understand. The secret inside Netflix. Let's pause and see what was happening inside Netflix at that time. Reed Hastings, the co-founder and CEO, had one core belief. Give people freedom. Treat them like adults. That simple idea changed the company from the inside out. At Netflix, there was no strict dress code. Employees could take unlimited vacation days as long as they delivered results. Reed focused on hiring smart, honest people and giving them space to do great work. This culture created something magical: trust, innovation, and speed. While Blockbuster was buried in rules, old systems, and arrogance, Netflix became a home for rebels, creators, and thinkers. And because of that, Netflix didn't just move fast, it evolved. It became a company that learned, adapted, and stayed one step ahead. Part 5: Seeing the Future. By 2006, Netflix had already won the DVD rental war. They had crushed Blockbuster's online attempt and were serving millions of subscribers. Their model, freedom, personalization, no late fees, had become a silent global movement. But Reed Hastings wasn't satisfied. He didn't want to stop at victory. He knew the world was changing again. Yes, Netflix had grown. Yes, people loved the DVDs. But Reed saw something that almost no one else saw: the end of DVDs. And the beginning of something invisible. He saw the future. One day, Reed looked at his team and asked, what if people could watch movies instantly? No mail, no envelopes, no waiting. Just click, and it starts playing. Everyone in the room was silent. It sounded impossible. This was 2006. Back then, the internet was slow. Streaming a full movie online seemed like a crazy dream. There was no YouTube Premium, no Amazon Prime Video, no Disney Plus. Streaming wasn't even a common word yet. But Reed wasn't building for today. He was building for tomorrow. He believed something powerful. If we don't disrupt ourselves, someone else will. The birth of streaming. Now, let's explain the idea of streaming in the simplest way. Streaming means you don't download the movie. You don't wait for a DVD. You don't store files on your computer. You just click play, and the movie starts instantly through the internet, like magic. Today, it feels normal. But in 2006, it was revolutionary. So Reed told his engineers, let's build a system that can stream movies online. And just like before, everyone thought he was crazy. There were huge challenges. Most customers still had slow internet. Movie studios didn't want to sell digital rights. No company had ever done streaming at scale. But Netflix had always been about taking risks. So they did it again. They invested millions of dollars in building streaming technology. They started negotiating with movie studios to allow their films to be shown online. They slowly trained their users to try something new, to watch online instead of waiting for DVDs in the mail. It took time. It took courage. But in 2007, something historic happened. Netflix officially launched instant streaming. At first, only a few customers tried it. Some were excited and said, wait, I can just click and watch? That's amazing. Others didn't believe it would work. Internet connections were slow. Movies took time to buffer. But Reed didn't care about the small problems. He knew this was only the first step of a much bigger revolution. What mattered wasn't perfection, it was possibility. And once again, Netflix was years ahead of everyone else. Part 6. The Quiet Revolution Becomes Unstoppable. Some people were excited about streaming. Others were confused and worried. What if my internet is slow? They asked. What if the movie stops in the middle? Netflix knew these problems would happen. They didn't expect instant perfection. They were betting on one simple truth: big changes always start small. The internet would get faster. Laptops and phones would get better. People would slowly choose convenience over physical DVDs. While Netflix quietly built streaming, Blockbuster stayed stuck in the old world, their stores, their late fees, their short-term thinking. Blockbuster believed their stores made billions and that customers loved coming in. They thought streaming would never work. But customers were tired. Tired of driving to the store. Tired of waiting in lines. Tired of being punished with late fees for a small mistake. Netflix offered something different. A quiet rebellion: stay home, get comfortable, click play. Little by little, people started switching sides. By 2008, Blockbuster was losing quickly. Their stock price fell. Revenues shrank. Loyal customers left. Good employees began to leave for newer, faster companies. Blockbuster tried to copy Netflix and launch streaming, but they were years behind, and their brand had already been damaged. Netflix had won the lead by being early, smart, and brave. There was no going back. While Blockbuster stumbled, Netflix kept improving step by step. 1. Make streaming work better. Netflix invested in content delivery networks, CDNs, so movies would load faster and play more smoothly. They used better video compression, so even people with slower internet could watch without constant pauses. They designed a simple user interface so even non-technical people could use it easily. They watched how people used the service, where they paused, what they skipped, and used that information to make the experience better. 2. Make recommendations smarter. Netflix didn't just show random titles. Their system learned each user's habits, analyzed past choices, and suggested movies and shows a person would likely love. This made the platform feel personal, like it understood you, and people spent hours discovering new favorites. 3. Go global. After success in the US, Netflix expanded slowly and carefully into Canada, Latin America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Every country had different tastes, languages, and cultures, so Netflix adapted, added subtitles, bought local movies, and created interfaces in more languages. This made Netflix a truly global brand, not just an American company. 4. Build trust. Netflix made sure the site didn't crash, that streaming rarely failed, payments were secure, and customer service was helpful and fast. Trust is the foundation of any great business, and Netflix built it. All these steps added up. By 2010, something that once seemed impossible had happened. Netflix was now the leader in home entertainment. Part 3. From renting to ruling. How Netflix became the king of entertainment. Blockbuster, once worth billions of dollars, was gone. Their stores were closing one after another. The bright blue and yellow signs that once filled every city started disappearing. The company that once laughed at Netflix was now bankrupt. But Netflix didn't destroy them through fights or drama. There were no shouting matches, no wars in the news. Netflix won silently, through evolution, innovation, and patience. They didn't win by being louder. They won by being smarter. They won by listening to what people really wanted: freedom, simplicity, and respect. While Blockbuster slept, Netflix kept building. And soon, something magical happened. People started using Netflix not just as a name, but as a verb. Let's Netflix tonight. Are you watching anything on Netflix? I just binged an entire show. Netflix wasn't just a company anymore. It was becoming a part of everyday life. Just like Google means search, Netflix now meant watch. That's when Reed Hastings and his team realized something powerful. We're not just a service anymore. We are the future of entertainment. The next big question. By the end of 2010, Netflix had done the impossible. They had defeated Blockbuster, the biggest name in movie rentals. They had transformed movie watching from mailing DVDs to streaming online. They had millions of loyal users, a trusted brand, and global love. But Reed Hastings wasn't satisfied. He asked his team one simple but dangerous question. What happens if one day, the movie studios stop giving us their content? Because here's what most people didn't know back then: Netflix didn't own the shows or movies on its platform. They were borrowing them from major Hollywood studios like Warner Brothers, Disney, Paramount, Universal, and others. That meant Netflix's entire future was in someone else's hands. Studios could raise prices anytime. They could remove their movies anytime. They could even partner with Netflix's competitors anytime. Reed didn't like that. He didn't want to build the future of entertainment on rented ground. So he said to his team, with quiet determination, "We are not just a tech company anymore. We are going to become a studio. We will create our own shows and films under the Netflix name." A crazy idea, making Netflix's first show. When Reed shared this plan, many people thought he had lost his mind. Netflix had no experience in filmmaking, no connection to Hollywood. No big actors, no famous directors, no history in storytelling. But Reed didn't care about the noise. He didn't care about opinions. He cared about direction. And that direction was clear: control our destiny. In 2011, Netflix heard that some studios were planning a remake of an old British political drama called House of Cards. It wasn't a superhero movie. It wasn't an action-packed thriller. It was a dark, serious story about politics, betrayal, and power. Everyone in Hollywood was bidding for it: big TV channels like HBO, NBC, and AMC. But Netflix did something shocking. They outbid everyone, offering $100 million to make not one, but 2 full seasons. A tech company with zero experience in film had just offered $100 million for a political drama. And they didn't even ask for a pilot episode. Usually, TV channels ask for one test episode first. But Netflix gave full freedom to the creators. Why? Because they had something no one else had: data. Netflix knew that millions of their users watched political dramas. They knew people loved movies starring Kevin Spacey, the lead actor. They knew audiences who watched shows like this often binged the whole series quickly. So Netflix made a bold move. They trusted the data, not their fear. The birth of binge watching. When Netflix released House of Cards in 2013, they broke every rule of traditional television. Instead of releasing one episode per week like everyone else, they dropped the entire season all at once. It was a radical decision. But it was based on one simple truth: people hate waiting. Netflix understood that viewers wanted control. They wanted to decide when to watch, how much to watch, and when to stop. They didn't want to wait 7 days for the next episode. They wanted to watch the full story in one night, one weekend, one sitting. And that's how binge watching was born. House of Cards became a global sensation. It won Emmy Awards. It received amazing reviews. And it gave Netflix something priceless: credibility. For the first time in history, a company that started by mailing DVDs was now creating award-winning original shows. Netflix was no longer just a platform. It was now a producer, a creator, a storyteller. This was a turning point in entertainment history. The rise of Netflix originals. After House of Cards, Netflix didn't slow down. They moved faster than ever. They built studios. They hired producers, writers, and directors. They made deals with big stars and talented newcomers. They created a new label, Netflix Originals. Whenever you saw that red N on a show or movie, it meant one thing: this belongs to us. You can only find it here. And from that moment, Netflix exploded with creativity. They launched hit after hit, show after show, in every language, every country. Here are just a few examples that changed entertainment forever. Orange is the New Black, a bold story about life inside a women's prison. Stranger Things, a nostalgic, supernatural adventure that became a global obsession. The Crown, a royal drama that made history feel alive again. Narcos, a gripping story about power, crime, and politics. 13 Reasons Why, a controversial but impactful drama about teenage struggles. Money Heist, La Casa de Papel, a Spanish show that became a worldwide phenomenon. Squid Game, a Korean series that broke every record in streaming history. Each of these shows had one thing in common: they were made with courage. They were made with freedom. They were made by a company that refused to stay the same. Netflix had officially evolved. From renting movies, to streaming them, to creating them. From being the underdog, to becoming the ruler of global entertainment. And it all started with a single question: what if people didn't have to go to the store? Part 4, The Global Takeover: How Netflix Redefined Entertainment Forever. 1. Stranger Things, 2016. A sci-fi mystery set in a small American town. It started with missing kids, a secret government lab, and a strange creature from another world. It had nostalgia, thrill, mystery, and heart. It reminded adults of the 80s and gave kids something new to fall in love with. It turned young actors like Millie Bobby Brown into global stars. It united generations, parents, teens, and children around one story. Stranger Things wasn't just a show. It was an emotion, a cultural wave, a worldwide obsession. 2. Narcos. The real-life story of Pablo Escobar, told like a crime documentary. It had action, danger, money, politics, and power all mixed with real history. It wasn't just entertainment, it was education wrapped in drama. Audiences from both English and Spanish-speaking countries loved it. Narcos proved Netflix could tell serious, global stories that felt like movies but played like series. 3. Money Heist, La Casa de Papel. A Spanish-language show that was originally struggling in Spain. Netflix bought the rights, added subtitles and dubbing, and re-released it worldwide. Within months, it exploded into a global phenomenon. The red jumpsuits, the dolly masks, and the song Bella Ciao became symbols of rebellion and unity. Money Heist showed one powerful truth: great stories don't need to come from Hollywood. They can come from anywhere in any language. 4. The Crown. A beautiful, elegant historical drama about the life of Queen Elizabeth II. Every episode looked like a film: grand sets, stunning costumes, deep storytelling. It was expensive, yes, but it was also powerful. The Crown proved Netflix could make prestige television, the kind that wins awards and earns respect. 5. 13 Reasons Why, Dark You, The Witcher, and so many more. Each show brought something new, new emotions, new audiences, new styles of storytelling. And with every hit, Netflix built its brand stronger. The secret behind the success. Netflix wasn't making random content. Every show, every movie was the result of data plus creativity. They used their own user data to study people's habits, which stories people loved, which actors had the biggest fan bases, which genres were missing on TV, what people watched again and again. Traditional studios relied on instinct and experience. Netflix relied on understanding people. They weren't guessing what to make, they were listening to viewers. That combination, art plus data, became their secret weapon, a global phenomenon. By now, Netflix was doing something the world had never seen before. They were creating stories that were watched in over 190 countries, translated into dozens of languages, streamed by millions of people of every age, background, and culture. People weren't just watching Netflix. They were living inside Netflix stories. Characters became icons. Soundtracks went viral. Merchandise exploded. Memes ruled social media. Netflix wasn't just a platform anymore. It was a global entertainment culture. Before Netflix, Hollywood dominated the world. Every big movie came from the same studios in Los Angeles. But Netflix changed the game. They proved that a great story can come from anywhere. So they invested in the world, Korean dramas, Spanish thrillers, German sci-fi, Indian originals, African documentaries, Turkish romances. They gave creators from every corner of the planet a stage, and the world responded with love. The global hits. And the results were historic. Squid Game from Korea, a social thriller that became the most watched show in Netflix history. Sacred Games from India, a dark, powerful series that redefined Indian storytelling. Lupin from France, a clever heist story full of charm and intelligence. Fauda from Israel, intense, emotional, and politically raw. Elite from Spain, a high school drama full of mystery and style. These shows proved something extraordinary, that language is no longer a barrier. A story made in Seoul could touch hearts in New York. A thriller made in Madrid could trend in Mumbai. A French heist could inspire memes in Mexico. Netflix united the world through storytelling. The business model that changed everything. By 2021, Netflix had over 200 million paid subscribers worldwide. They weren't just a company anymore. They were the largest entertainment network on Earth. While traditional studios depended on box office sales and TV ads, Netflix focused on subscriptions. Their logic was simple. If we make amazing content that people love, they'll stay with us, month after month, year after year. And it worked beautifully. This model created steady, predictable income. It didn't rely on one blockbuster to survive. It gave Netflix freedom to take creative risks. It gave directors and writers artistic control. And most importantly, it gave viewers what they always wanted: no ads. No waiting. No nonsense. Netflix made money not by interrupting you, but by earning your loyalty. And that was revolutionary. The culture behind the curtain. Inside Netflix, something equally powerful was happening. Their employee culture was unlike any traditional company. It was built on two simple principles: freedom and responsibility. Employees were trusted like adults. No micromanagement. No vacation tracking. No time clocks. Just results. You had the freedom to make bold decisions, but also the responsibility to deliver excellence. Reed Hastings once said, "We don't control people with rules. We inspire them with trust." This culture attracted the smartest minds in tech, film, and storytelling. People who didn't want to follow rules, they wanted to rewrite them. And together, they built something extraordinary, a company that changed not only what we watch, but how we watch and why we watch. Part 5: The Empire Faces Its Greatest Test. Inside Netflix, performance was everything. If someone didn't deliver, they were let go kindly but clearly. No drama. No confusion. Just honesty. If someone thrived, they were rewarded with more freedom, more impact, and more opportunity. This created a team unlike any other: fast, smart, fearless, and obsessed with improvement. A team that challenged ideas, not people. A team that treated excellence as the baseline, not the goal. And this internal culture became Netflix's hidden superpower. It helped them stay 10 steps ahead of the competition. The streaming wars begin. Netflix's rise was so massive, so unstoppable, that it woke the sleeping giants of the tech world. Soon, the battlefield began to fill. Amazon Prime Video stepped in. Disney Plus entered the game with its army of Marvel, Pixar, and Star Wars fans. Apple TV Plus joined with billions in funding and the world's most recognizable brand. HBO Max, Peacock, Paramount Plus, and countless others followed. Everyone wanted a piece of the streaming empire. But Netflix wasn't afraid. Why? Because they had something none of the others did: a 10-year head start, deep knowledge of their users, a massive library of global hits, and a brand that people trusted and loved. Netflix knew the truth. The world is big enough for competition, but only the best will survive. And Netflix had no intention of losing that crown. Innovation never stops. Once again, Netflix pushed boundaries. They didn't wait for the future, they built it. They launched interactive storytelling, shows where you, the viewer, control the story. In Black Mirror, Bandersnatch, every choice you make changes the outcome. It's like watching and playing at the same time. This wasn't just innovation for fun, it was proof that Netflix wasn't following trends. They were creating them. Behind the scenes, the tech that powers the magic. While the world saw cool shows and endless streaming, behind the curtain, Netflix was becoming a technology powerhouse. They built custom video compression tools so streaming stayed smooth, even on weak connections. They used artificial intelligence to predict what each user might love next. They created sound mixing systems that made even home speakers feel cinematic. They even designed different thumbnail images for each viewer, so the poster you see might be completely different from someone else's. Why? Because the image that appeals to you makes you more likely to click. Netflix wasn't just making content. They were engineering the entire experience. It was the perfect marriage of art and science, creativity powered by data. The pandemic era, a global lifeline. Then came the year that changed everything, 2020. The world shut down. Movie theaters went dark. Concerts were canceled. Events disappeared overnight. But people still needed stories. They needed escape, emotion, comfort, and connection. And so, millions turned to Netflix. It became more than a service, it became a lifeline. People laughed, cried, and dreamed through the screen. Shows like The Queen's Gambit, The Crown, and Tiger King became cultural explosions, giving people something to talk about when the world had stopped talking. While others paused, Netflix thrived. Because for over a decade, they had already been preparing for a digital-first world. The summit of success. By 2021, Netflix was no longer just a streaming platform. It had become a global symbol of entertainment itself, a culture people lived inside, a name spoken in every household, from New York to Nairobi, from Tokyo to Buenos Aires. They had conquered the world. But here's the truth no one likes to admit: success creates enemies. Fame brings pressure. And the top is always the loneliest place. The very empire that changed entertainment was about to face its greatest challenges yet. Powerful competitors were rising. Governments were beginning to question their influence. Critics grew louder. Growth was slowing. And even inside Netflix, the pressure to keep winning never stopped. This was the beginning of the next chapter. The part where every empire gets tested. The part where vision is tested by reality. And the part that decides whether Netflix would stay a legend or become a lesson. Part 6: The Fall and the Fight. Netflix faces its greatest enemies. For the first time in its history, Netflix was surrounded. The company that once changed the world of entertainment was now standing in a battlefield filled with giants. Let's break down its biggest competitors and why each one was so dangerous. 1. Amazon Prime Video, the power of the empire. Amazon Prime Video wasn't just a streaming platform. It was backed by one of the richest men on earth, Jeff Bezos. It came bundled with Amazon Prime, so millions of customers were already signed up without even realizing it. Amazon had unlimited money, global reach, and massive ambition. They invested billions in shows like The Boys, Reacher, and The Lord of the Rings. The Rings of Power, one of the most expensive TV productions ever made. They didn't just want to compete with Netflix. They wanted to dominate entertainment entirely. 2. Disney Plus, the power of nostalgia. Then came Disney Plus. And this was a threat unlike any other. Because Disney wasn't just a company. It was the kingdom of childhood memories. Disney owned Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, and National Geographic. They had characters loved for generations, from Iron Man to Elsa, from Darth Vader to Mickey Mouse. Within just 2 years of launching, Disney Plus gained over 100 million subscribers. Families loved it. Kids adored it. And parents felt safe letting their children watch. Disney Plus wasn't trying to copy Netflix. It was building its own empire, family-friendly, nostalgic, and unstoppable. 3. HBO Max, the premium challenger. Next came HBO Max, backed by Warner Brothers. HBO was already famous for shows like Game of Thrones, Succession, and The Batman. They had the one thing Netflix didn't: industry respect. People saw HBO as the home of real, quality storytelling. They positioned themselves as the premium streaming experience: fewer shows, but higher standards. 4. The others joined the battle. Then came the rest: Apple TV+, Peacock, Paramount+, and more. Each one had its own plan. Some focused on sports, some on news, some on local content. But they all wanted one thing: to take Netflix's crown. For the first time ever, Netflix wasn't the only king on the hill. It had to fight not just for growth, but for survival at the top. The pressure of being number one. Here's the hardest part about success: once you become number one, you can't stop. Not even for a moment. Netflix was a public company. That meant every 3 months, they had to prove themselves again. More users, more revenue, more shows, more countries, more everything. Investors demanded constant growth. Every small dip in numbers could wipe out billions in value. Inside the company, the pressure was intense. Writers were racing against deadlines. Engineers were fixing bugs in hours, not days. Executives were making billion-dollar decisions overnight. From the outside, it looked like glamour. Inside, it was a pressure cooker. Global fame brings global judgment. With fame came scrutiny from everywhere. Netflix was now a global brand, and every move was watched, judged, and debated. They faced political pressure, religious criticism, cultural backlash, and constant moral debates. Let's look at a few of their biggest storms. 1. Content controversies. Netflix's wide range of shows made it a global success, but also a global target. Some shows were called too violent. Some were accused of being too sexual. Others offended cultural or religious groups. In countries like India, Turkey, and across the Middle East, these issues turned serious. Governments demanded censorship. Some even threatened bans. Activists and social groups protested. Netflix had to walk a thin line, balancing creative freedom with cultural sensitivity. Every decision was a risk. 2. The Dave Chappelle controversy. In 2021, Netflix released a stand-up special by Dave Chappelle. Some viewers found it hilarious. Others found it deeply offensive, especially within the LGBTQ+ community. The result? Massive backlash. Employee walkouts. Public outrage. Global headlines. Netflix defended freedom of expression, but the controversy revealed internal cracks, a company struggling to balance art, audience, and ethics. 3. The password-sharing war. For years, people shared their Netflix accounts with friends and family. One subscription, multiple users, everyone did it. But as Netflix grew, this became a massive problem. Millions were watching without paying. To protect revenue, Netflix announced they would start blocking or charging extra for shared accounts. The response? Fury. People felt betrayed. They said, "We supported you for years, now you're charging us more?" It was one of Netflix's most unpopular moves ever, but the company stood firm, saying it was necessary for survival. Still, Netflix refused to stop evolving. Even under pressure, Netflix kept innovating. Because if there's one rule in tech, it's this: adapt or die. Let's break down how they fought back and where it worked or failed. 1. Mobile-first strategy. In countries like India, Indonesia, and Africa, most people didn't own TVs or laptops. They streamed on their phones. So Netflix changed its approach. They created mobile-only plans, cheaper, easier, faster. They added more subtitles, more dubbing, and even tested vertical video formats to fit phone screens. It was a smart move to reach the next billion users. 2. The gaming expansion. Then, Netflix made one of its boldest moves ever. They entered the gaming world. Why? Because they believed if people love Netflix stories, they'd want to play inside them too. So Netflix launched Netflix Games, where subscribers could download mobile games for free. Some were based on hit shows. Others were original. But this was risky. Making great games is completely different from making movies. Still, it showed one thing: Netflix was never afraid to experiment. 3. Interactive experiences. Netflix also continued its interactive storytelling experiments, where viewers could make choices that changed the story. It was part movie, part video game, and 100% innovation. Each new feature proved one truth: Netflix didn't want to be the past of entertainment. It wanted to be the future of it. Part 4. The legacy of Netflix and the future ahead. Netflix kept experimenting with choose-your-own-path stories, live streaming events, global watch parties, and AI-powered recommendations. They believed one truth: we're not just a movie company. We're the future of entertainment. But every innovation came with a price: higher costs, greater risk, and the pressure to impress millions instantly. Then came 2022 and 2023. For the first time in over a decade, Netflix lost subscribers. It was shocking. The media called it the fall of Netflix. People asked, is the Netflix era over? Competition was fierce. The economy was tightening. Some canceled subscriptions to save money, others jumped to cheaper platforms. The stock dropped sharply. But Netflix didn't panic. Every empire faces storms. What matters is how it responds. Netflix responded with power. They doubled down on great stories Wednesday. All Quiet on the Western Front. The Sandman. The Diplomat. They introduced new pricing tiers, including cheaper plans with ads. They cracked down on account sharing. They invested heavily in global content from Korea, India, Nigeria, France, and beyond. They weren't reacting, they were reinventing. And it worked. The stock began recovering. Subscribers started rising again. Once more, their belief in long-term thinking paid off. Netflix had grown from a dream into a digital empire, and empires survive only by evolving. But what made Netflix truly different was this. They didn't cry when challenged. They didn't panic when judged. They didn't blame others when growth slowed. They adapted. They changed. They evolved. They proved something timeless: success isn't about avoiding failure. It's about rising every time the world tries to pull you down. The legacy of Netflix. We've seen the full journey. It began with a $40 late fee. Faced rejection from Blockbuster. Revolutionized streaming. Built a global culture of storytelling across languages, nations, and generations. And even after storms of criticism, Netflix kept moving forward. But now comes the question, what's next? What legacy will Netflix leave for the future? Because this isn't just the story of a company. It's the story of a mindset, a way of thinking, building, and reinventing that changed the world. As we enter 2025 and beyond, entertainment is transforming again. The next revolution won't just be about movies or shows, it'll be about worlds. Artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, interactive storytelling, AI-generated experiences that respond to you. And Netflix is already preparing for that future. They're investing in AI to understand every viewer more deeply, not just what you watch, but when, how, and why. To recommend content based on mood, habits, even the time of day. To test titles, thumbnails, and trailers in real time to see what connects best. But that's just the beginning. Imagine this. One day, your Netflix might show you a movie ending unique to your emotions. A version no one else sees. That's the power of personalized storytelling. And beyond that, virtual reality. 360 degrees interactive stories. Augmented reality experiences where characters step into your real world. The future of Netflix won't just be about watching stories. It will be about entering them. Part 5. The Heart of Netflix and Lessons for Life. Imagine this. You put on a headset. You step into a city from your favorite show. You walk the streets, interact with characters, make choices that shape the story. Netflix knows the audience of the future won't just watch. They will participate. And Netflix is preparing for that future right now. From a small DVD company in California, Netflix has grown into a global powerhouse. They are building studios all over the world, not just in Hollywood. Why? Because the next great story might come from Nigeria, Poland, Brazil, or India. Netflix is hiring local talent, training new creators, supporting original voices, and bringing local stories to global screens. They are creating a world where storytelling is truly global, where every voice, every culture, every perspective can shine. They've launched screenwriting fellowships, animation workshops, documentary labs, programs for female directors, and initiatives for underrepresented creators. This isn't charity. It's a long-term investment. Netflix knows that if we want incredible stories 10 years from now, we have to plant the seeds today. They are not just buying shows, they are building creators. And behind all the data, algorithms, deals, and billions of dollars, Netflix's story is deeply human. It's about obsession, rejection, courage, and long-term thinking. It's about evolving even when you are already winning. Let's go back to the beginning. Reed Hastings wasn't trying to become a billionaire. He didn't start Netflix for fame or power. He was just a man frustrated by a $40 late fee. And instead of complaining, blaming, or quitting, he built something that changed how the entire planet watches stories. That's what makes Netflix extraordinary. And now, the lessons you can take from this 4-part journey. Build from pain. That $40 late fee wasn't just a charge. It was a spark. Your challenges can destroy you or launch you. Start small, but start now. Netflix began with a single CD and an envelope. Big things start quietly, not grandly. Be ready to be laughed at. Blockbuster laughed. The world laughed. Even family doubted. Netflix kept moving in silence. Disrupt yourself before others do. They moved to streaming, created originals, launched global content, all before the world asked. Always ask, what's next? Let data support creativity, not replace it. Netflix mixed human stories with smart technology. Both were essential. Stay hungry even when you've won. Even after conquering the world, Netflix never stopped improving. They reinvented themselves again and again. Make your own stage. When Hollywood refused them power, Netflix built its own platform. If no one gives you a chance, create your own table. Loyalty is earned, not bought. Netflix built trust. No ads, no punishments, just consistent value. That's how you build something that lasts. So, what is Netflix really? It is not just a streaming platform, not just a tech company, not just a movie studio. Netflix is a philosophy. It says, even if you start with nothing, even if the world laughs at you, even if you get rejected 1,000 times, you can build something legendary if you stay quiet, stay focused, and never stop evolving. Netflix is proof that obsession, vision, courage, and long-term thinking can change the world. And now, the question is, what will you build with your spark? This is the true, full, and detailed story of Netflix. It began with a simple $40 late fee. It grew into a company with over 250 million subscribers around the world. And it changed the way humans experience entertainment forever. Netflix didn't just beat Blockbuster. They beat every excuse. They beat every limitation. They beat every doubt. And now their story belongs to the world. If this story has inspired you, moved you, or made you feel empowered, share it with someone who is building something of their own. Because here's the truth. You don't need to be loud to change the world. You just need to be clear. You just need to be committed. You just need to be quietly obsessed. Subscribe to this channel. Here, we don't just tell stories. We tell stories that wake you up. Stories that remind you who you are. Stories that show you who you can become. More stories like this are coming. You deserve to hear every single one. So, hit that subscribe button. Let's grow together, my brilliant students of ideas, of English, and of ambition.